A few months ago, I had a strange experience at an old gas station. I've been a truck driver for over a decade and prefer the back roads. It's quieter that way. One evening, I stopped at a forgotten gas station just off the highway. I needed coffee and something to eat. Looking back, I didn't know what I was getting into. The gas station was run down. The sign was so faded I could hardly read it. The pavement was cracked and weeds poked through the cracks. As I walked toward the entrance, a chill went through me. The lights were dim and flickering like they were about to give out. I felt a knot in my stomach, but I brushed it aside. I pushed the door open and a cold breeze rushed past me. Inside, the attendant stood behind the counter. She looked vacant. Her eyes were wide and didn't blink. I said, "Hello?" There was a pause before she nodded slowly. It sent a shiver down my spine. I thought maybe I was just tired. I tried to ignore it and went to the snack aisle. I grabbed a stale sandwich and a bottle of coffee. As I handed her my money, I noticed a woman in the corner. She was disheveled and talking to herself. I couldn't catch her words, but it felt unsettling. I glanced at the attendant, who hadn't moved. My unease grew. I paid and turned to leave, but that woman was closer. She fixed her gaze on me. Then I swear she muttered something about the road being dangerous. I thought she might just be a bit off. I shrugged it off and walked outside. Back in my truck, I opened the sandwich, but my stomach turned. I wanted to hit the road. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a man wandering nearby. He held a bag of chips but wasn't buying anything. He kept walking inside and out, mumbling, "Just one more, just one more." I found it odd and felt my heart start to race. He didn't seem violent, but something was wrong. I glanced at the attendant again. She was still staring, unblinking. A child suddenly appeared beside me, grinning. I couldn't believe my eyes. I blinked, and he was gone. My skin went cold. I was tired, I thought. I shook my head, but doubt crept in. I wanted to leave. I headed to my truck, feeling watched. I took one last look behind me. The attendant was still standing there, staring. It hit me, the weirdness of it all. Were those people really there? I pulled onto the highway, my heart racing. As I glanced in the rearview mirror, the gas station sign flickered again. My body felt tense. I had to keep driving, but the feeling of being watched lingered. What happened inside that gas station? I've replayed it in my head countless times. Was I losing my mind, or was there something darker in that forgotten place? I still don't know, and I doubt I ever will. The next day, I tried to shake off the odd feeling from the gas station. I figured it was just my imagination running wild, but a part of me couldn't let it go. I decided to take the same route again. Maybe I'd find some clarity. As I approached the gas station, everything looked eerily the same. It was as if time had stood still. The sign still flickered, and the weeds were still breaking through the pavement. I parked my truck and took a deep breath. This time, I wanted answers. I stepped inside, and the familiar smell hit me. It was a mix of stale coffee and something I couldn't quite place. The attendant was behind the counter, just as vacant as before. Her expression hadn't changed. I hesitated at first, but curiosity pushed me forward. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual, "what's going on around here?" She stared at me, unblinking. "Is anyone else working?" I felt the knot in my stomach tightening again. But before she could answer, the rambling woman appeared from the shadows. She was even closer now, her eyes wild. "The road is dangerous!" she shouted, startling me. I looked at the attendant, hoping for some sign of normalcy, but she remained as still as a statue. "Do you know her?" I asked the attendant. No response. I turned to the woman. "What do you mean by dangerous?" Without warning, her expression changed. "They're watching you. You shouldn't have come back." Her voice lowered to a whisper, and I felt a chill spread through me. My adrenaline kicked in as I glanced around, half expecting the walls to close in. Who's watching? I wanted to leave. This was all too much. Before she could answer, something caught my eye outside. The man with the bag of chips was standing near my truck, looking at me. I felt a rush of fear. He wasn't mumbling this time. His face was blank, and for a moment our eyes locked. It felt like he knew something I didn't. "Get out," the woman hissed. "They'll take you next." That sent me back in a way, my heart pounding. I turned to leave, but the attendant's arm shot out. "Wait," she finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "You need to go, now." I rushed back outside, my eyes darting to my truck. The man was gone. I scanned the area but saw no trace of him. My breathing was rapid. As I reached my truck, I noticed something on the windshield. A strange symbol drawn in the dust. It was like a twisted star, and I felt the weight of dread settle over me. I wiped it away fast, but I couldn't shake the feeling. I jumped into my truck and backed out. As I drove away, the gas station faded in the distance. Despite the miles, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on me. When I finally reached a diner for a break, I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. The symbol, the woman's warning, and the man who seemed to vanish. I needed to find out if it was real or just my imagination. Just then, my phone buzzed. I looked down. A new message. "You shouldn't have left. They're coming for you." My heart sank. What was happening? I didn't stick around the diner. I couldn't eat or drink anything with that message hanging over me. I got back into my truck, my hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than ever. I needed to escape this nightmare, but my mind raced with questions. What did it mean? Who were they? As I drove, I kept glancing in the rearview mirror. I half expected to see someone following me. Nothing, just the empty road stretching behind me. It felt like a big exposed canvas where anyone could lurk just out of sight. I needed to figure out what was going on, but I couldn't trust anyone. Should I call the police? What would I even say? "Hey, I visited a gas station and now I'm getting threatening texts?" It sounded ridiculous. Instead, I pulled over to the side of the road to collect my thoughts. I dug out my phone again, but the screen remained dark and lifeless. No missed calls, no new messages. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. That was when I noticed it. A car approaching from behind. It was a beat-up sedan, and as it got closer, the driver jerked the wheel. I watched, frozen, as it careened toward me, the tires screeching against the asphalt. My heart raced again as I realized it was the same man from the gas station, the one with the chips. His expression was frantic, almost desperate. He skidded to a halt next to my truck. The engine sputtered, but he threw open the door and rushed over. "You need to listen to me," he shouted, his eyes wild. "They're coming, man. They're really coming." "Who?" I snapped, trying to keep my voice steady. "Who's coming?" "The Watchers. They don't want anyone to know. I tried to warn you," he panted, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting someone to jump out of the bushes. "I can help you, but we have to go, now." "Help me how?" I asked, my instincts screaming to run. Part of me wanted to trust him. Another part wanted to lock the doors and drive away. He glanced back again, his face pale. "They know you were at the gas station. If you stay here, they'll know where you are. They'll find you." I didn't want to believe him, but every instinct told me to listen. They seemed so real, those women, the attendant, the symbol on my truck. "Fine," I said. "What do I need to do?" "Get in. We can't waste any time," he urged, pointing behind me. I felt the urgency in his tone, and against my better judgment, I climbed into the passenger seat. He slammed the door and started the engine. "We have to stick to the back roads, no main highways. They'll be watching them." As we sped away, I looked back at my truck, now a fading shadow among the trees. A thought struck me. Would I even want to go back? The dread welled up inside me again, but I didn't have time to process it. "We should be safe for now," he said, stealing a glance at me. "But we need to get to the safe house." "Safe house?" I echoed, feeling unsettled. Then I noticed something in the rearview mirror, a dark vehicle shadowing us from a distance. My blood ran cold. "What's that?" I asked, panic creeping into my voice. "Don't look at it," he yelled. "Just drive." I felt my heart race even faster. The danger wasn't over, and I wasn't sure I had made the right choice. The engine roared as the man swerved onto a narrow dirt road flanked by trees. I could barely see out the windows, but I could feel the dark presence behind us, lingering like a bad dream. "What do you know about these watchers?" I asked, trying to clamp down on the rising fear inside me. He didn't answer right away, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. "They're everywhere," he said finally. "They see everything. I didn't believe it at first, but I had to learn the hard way. They watch, they record, and anyone who gets in their way—" He trailed off, a haunted look passing over his face. As we sped past an old barn, I recalled the faces from the gas station. Those women, their eyes were so vacant. "What do they want?" I pressed, hoping for clarity. "They want control, information. Anyone who knows something can be a target, and they take measures to ensure nobody finds out." My pulse quickened. This was more than some local crazy ranting. If he was right, I was in deeper than I realized. I glanced back, the dark car still tailing us, but not gaining. "What happens if they catch us?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He shot me an uneasy look. "They'll make you disappear." I shivered, the weight of his words crashing down on me. Disappear? Just like that? I shook my head, trying to dispel the fear. "I can't just go missing. I have to figure this out." "Then you need to keep your head down and trust me. We can reach the safe house. It's an old mechanic shop. No one knows about it," he replied, his tone earnest. Then the trees parted, revealing a rickety building in a clearing. I noticed a faded sign hanging loosely, barely able to proclaim, "Mechanics at your service." My stomach twisted at the sight. Was this truly going to be my refuge? Just as we pulled up, headlights blinded us, the rear view mirror, and I felt my stomach drop. The dark vehicle had found us. "Get out! We've got to move!" he shouted, his voice piercing through the fear wrapping around me. Before I could open my door, the sound of tires screeching tore through the air as the dark vehicle skidded to a stop behind us. The doors flew open and figures emerged, their faces shadowed. I felt a jolt of terror shoot through me. "Run!" he yelled, scrambling out of the car. I followed, adrenaline kicking in even as panic surged. We dashed around the side of the mechanic shop, my heart pounding in sync with my footsteps. Then everything went still. I turned to see where the man had gone. That's when I saw it, a glint of metal reflected in the weak light. One of the figures from the dark vehicle was pointing something at us. "Get down!" I screamed. A shot rang out, followed by the shatter of glass. My breath caught, and I ducked behind a dumpster as chaos erupted. I didn't know what would happen next, but one thing was clear. Whatever I thought I understood was just the beginning. My heart raced as I crouched behind the dumpster. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block out the sounds of the shattering glass and the shouts from the figures. Everything felt surreal, like a nightmare I couldn't escape. I needed to move, to get out of this nightmare, but my feet felt glued to the ground. "Don't just sit there," I heard the man yell from my right. I opened my eyes to see him darting toward the side entrance of the mechanic shop, beckoning me urgently. It was now or never. I pushed myself off the ground and sprinted toward him, the sound of another shot echoing in the air. I ducked into the building just as another fragment of glass erupted from the doorframe. The interior was dark, the smell of oil mingling with dust and mildew. I could barely make out the shapes of old tools and a rusty car hanging up on a lift. My breath was loud in the silence. "Over here!" the man shouted, motioning to a staircase leading to a loft. I hurried after him, my mind racing. We climbed up quickly, the old wood creaking beneath our feet. At the top, we found a small room cluttered with boxes.
The windows were grimy, but at least they provided a view of the entrance below. "Do you think they saw us?" I whispered, peering through a crack in the slats. Below, the figure stood near our car, scanning the area. I felt a chill. They seemed to be looking right at us. "I don't know, but they have to be careful," he said, gripping the edge of the window frame. "If they rush in here, it could get messy." My mind was still reeling. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice tense.
"We can't just stay here waiting to be found." He turned to me, urgency flashing in his eyes. "We wait for them to leave. There's a back exit, but the moment they go, we have to move fast." My pulse thudded in my ears as I nodded, though uncertainty coursed through me. "How long do you think it'll be?" "There's no telling," he said, his voice grim. "They could be here for a while." Just then, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. Through the grimy window, I spotted a figure moving closer. It had a familiar silhouette, and a rush of panic washed over me. "Someone's coming," I gasped. "We need to hide." Without waiting for a response, I backed away from the window and ducked behind a stack of boxes. The man followed immediately, his face pale. From our hidden spot, I strained to listen. Footsteps echoed in the narrow hallway. I held my breath, hoping it was just one of them. But when I saw the flash of a flashlight beam cutting through the dust, my heart sank. This was no longer about just hiding. We were cornered. From my slip of cover, I dared to peek again. The dark figure moved into view, stopping just outside our door. That was when I noticed a bulge in their jacket, a weapon. My mind reeled as the door handle began to turn. "Get ready," the man whispered, his body tense beside me. "We might have to fight our way out." The door creaked open, and I prepared to do whatever it took to survive, my mind still racing with the realization this was just the beginning. The door swung open, and my breath caught as the figure stepped inside. It was a woman, her face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. She held a gun loosely at her side, scanning the room. I could see her eyes, sharp and alert, moving quickly to take in the disarray. "What do we do?" I whispered, my voice trembling. I didn't want to confront anyone, especially someone armed and clearly dangerous. The man beside me, who still hadn't introduced himself, shifted silently. He was trying to gauge the situation, I could tell. The tension felt electric, almost suffocating. The woman stepped further into the cramped space, her flashlight beam bobbing along the floor. I clenched my fists, wishing for something, anything to defend myself if it came to that. I could see the rust and grime around us, but all I could focus on was her. "Anyone here?" she called, her voice low but firm. "You think we can keep hiding forever?" My stomach sank. It sounded like she knew we were inside. Then, to my utter disbelief, she turned off the flashlight and moved to the far end of the room. I exchanged a quick glance with the man. Was she giving us a chance to escape? "We need to move," he murmured. I could see his resolve building, his fear transforming into action. Before I could fully process it, he gestured toward the back door, his eyes pleading. I nodded, knowing we had to take the risk. As we tiptoed toward the exit, I nervously watched the woman. She seemed distracted now, fiddling with her gun as if contemplating her next move. Just as we reached the door, a loud crash came from below, like something heavy hitting the ground. The woman's head snapped back toward the noise, instinct kicking in. I froze, my heart hammering in my chest. "Go," the man hissed, and I pushed through the door without thinking. We tumbled outside, the cool air hitting us like a wave. I looked around, assessing our surroundings. Dim light from the street lamp barely illuminated a narrow alleyway, but it was our only way out. The man moved quickly ahead of me, and I followed close behind, adrenaline drowning out my fear. We darted around the side of the building and came face to face with a chain-link fence. My heart raced. The way back to safety was blocked, but there was a gap at the bottom. I crouched and squeezed through, feeling the rough edges scrape my arms. The man followed right after. On the other side, we found ourselves in a small parking lot. I turned to see if we were still being followed, but the shadows swallowed everything behind us. "We can't linger," he said urgently. "We've got to move." I nodded, too wrapped in my own thoughts to feel relieved. Why had that woman been there? Did she know something about me? About us? I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end. Then, as we slipped out of the lot and onto a side street, I saw it. A flash of movement at the far end. My breath hitched. In the dim light, I could make out two more figures approaching, and they were not alone. "Run!" I yelled, panic fueling my legs as I turned to sprint in the opposite direction. My mind raced. Who were they? What did they want from us? I was still running when I heard the footsteps behind us quicken. This was just the beginning, and somehow I knew we were heading straight into even deeper trouble. We dashed down the side street, my heart pounding in rhythm with our hurried steps. The night air grew thick around us, heavy with the scent of asphalt and distant smoke. I didn't dare glance back. I was afraid of what I'd see. "Keep going," the man urged, his voice strained but steady. I focused on his back, the way his muscles shifted with every stride. He was leading us, and I desperately hoped he knew where we were going. We turned another corner and came upon an old gas station, its neon lights flickering over cracked pavement. It looked long abandoned, but it was better than just running into the night. The ominous glow seemed to call to us, and instinct pulled us toward the shadows of the "Over there!" He pointed to a rusted sedan tucked between two columns. "We can hide inside." I scrambled toward the car, diving through the passenger side. It smelled of dust and mold. My skin prickled as I pressed myself back against the seat, trying to calm my racing heart. "Do you think they saw us?" I whispered, trying to catch my breath. "I'm not sure," he replied, scanning the parking lot through a grimy window. "But we can't stay here too long." I felt the weight of his words settle in my stomach. The woman and her gun, the figures following us, it was all too much. Who were they? What did they want? I needed to know, but fear held me captive in the sedan. After a few tense moments, he turned and breathed out slowly. "We need to find out what's going on. If they're after us, we can't assume they won't come looking." I nodded, but dread surged in me. I didn't want to confront this threat head on, yet I also knew I couldn't hide forever. What if they catch us? Before he could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed from the side of the station. My heart raced again. I crouched lower, barely able to breathe as the footsteps grew closer. "I think they're here," I murmured, gripping my knees tightly. "Stay quiet," he instructed, his eyes darting around the car. Just then, a shadow marched past the driver's side window. "Did you hear that?" a voice called, muffled but sharp. It belonged to one of the figures. I swear they were just here. Panic surged through me. They could be searching right outside our hiding spot. "I told you," another voice chimed in, tinged with frustration. "They can't be far. They didn't even have time to get far. We'll find them." I felt bile rise in my throat. Why were they hunting us? It wasn't just my imagination that there was something bigger happening here. The voices grew fainter as they moved around the building. I risked a quick glance out the window. Nothing but darkness swirled in the distance, but the shadows felt deeper now, more suffocating. Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I was going to ignore it, but curiosity won over. I pulled it out and saw a notification flashing on the screen. "Urgent, meet us at the nest. It's about to go down." But who sent this? My fingers trembled. I felt the walls closing in as I swallowed my panic. There was something I hadn't known about this whole mess. "What is it?" my companion asked, peering at my screen. I don't know, but if we have a chance to find answers, we need to take it." Just as I finished speaking, footsteps returned, louder than before, and I realized they were coming back. "Quick, get ready to move," he said, urgency lacing his voice. My pulse quickened. We had to act fast. This wasn't over yet, and I could feel it in my bones. The real danger was only beginning. I held my breath, eyes fixed on the darkness outside. The footsteps halted just a few feet from where we hid. My heart thudded in my ears,
each beat a reminder of how vulnerable we were. "Where the hell are they?" one of the figures grumbled, sounding frustrated. "They must have slipped away. Check the cars," the second voice ordered. I squeezed my eyes shut, my mind racing. We had to get out before they found us. I turned to the man beside me, his face tense and concentrated. "What's the plan?" He glanced around, spotting the back door of the gas station. "We might make it if we can get across the other side. It'll give us some cover." "Cover from what?" I whispered, terrified of the answer. "From them?" His jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. Instead, he opened the door cautiously, trying not to make a sound. I followed him, trying to be as quiet as possible. The moment I set foot on the asphalt, dread crept in again. Every shadow felt like it was alive, waiting to snatch me back into the unknown. My instinct screamed at me to turn back, but we pressed onward. We crouched low and began creeping toward the back of the station. The moonlight barely illuminated our path, but I could see shapes looming: a dumpster, an old tire, and a doorway leading into the building. "Go," he hissed as we darted behind the dumpster. I clamped a hand over my mouth to stifle my panic. "We can't go in there," I protested quietly, pointing at the doorway. The idea of entering that dark space felt worse than being caught. "It's our best shot. We can't just keep running." I took one last glance back. I could hear footsteps approaching again, sharper and more determined this time. "Fine," I relented, my voice barely a whisper. We slipped through the doorway, and the stale smell of the interior hit us immediately. The door creaked as we entered, echoing in the small space. Inside, it was dark, the only light coming from a flickering bulb overhead. The walls were lined with dusty shelves, strewn with forgotten items. "That's it," he said, gesturing to the back of the room. "Let's go deeper, find a way out." I nodded, forcing my legs to move. We navigated through the maze of clutter, my heart still racing. Just when I thought we might make it to safety, I stumbled over something on the floor. "Careful," he whispered urgently, grabbing my arm to steady me. As I looked down, my stomach dropped. It was a cell phone, cracked and dirty, but still functional. The screen lit up with the name of a contact I recognized: Mara. "Wait, I started. "This phone belonged to a friend who had gone missing months ago." "What's it doing here?" he asked, his eyes widening. I wasn't even sure I hadn't. Before I could respond, a loud thud resounded from the front of the building. Someone was forcing their way in. They were here, and all I could think was that this was no coincidence. "This is bad," I said, my voice trembling. "Get ready," he urged, his eyes scanning for an escape route. Suddenly, the back door swung open, revealing a figure silhouetted against the harsh light outside. My breath caught in my throat. "I found him," the voice shouted. Everything in me froze. Panic surged. We had been found. The figure burst through the doorway, causing my heart to race even faster. I pressed myself against the wall, praying the shadows would swallow me whole. The man beside me stiffened, muscles tense and ready for anything. "Quick, over here," the newcomer shouted, beckoning to others outside. I peered around the shelves, desperate for a plan. The sound of rushing footsteps outside multiplied, echoing in the confined space. Time seemed to slip away as adrenaline took over. "Stay quiet," the man hissed, but his voice trembled too. The room felt smaller, closing in on me as I scanned for another exit. It was then I noticed a narrow door at the far end, half hidden behind a mountain of old crates. I locked eyes with my companion. "What if we go for that door?" "Are you crazy? We'll be exposed." "I'd rather take my chances than sit here," argued, the urgency pushing me into action. "We can't let 'em catch us." Without waiting for a response, I crept towards the door, feeling the cold sweat on my palms. My heart hammered louder with every step. I could hear muffled voices, the sound of shuffling footsteps getting closer. The door was heavy and rusted. I pulled it open just enough to squeeze through. My companion hesitated before following. On the other side, a dim hallway stretched out before us, lined with peeling paint and flickering lights. I could hear the distant sounds of shouts and crashing objects coming from the gas station area. We had to move quickly. We stumbled down the hallway, our footsteps echoing ominously in the silence. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see them right behind us. If they got too close, I knew we wouldn't make it. "Do you know if there's a way out?" I whispered, panic rising in my throat. He shook his head, his expression grim. "Just keep going." The hallway twisted and turned, but finally we spotted another door at the end. It looked slightly ajar, a sliver of moonlight seeping through. I took a step towards it, heart racing, but then I froze. "That's the maintenance room," he said, his voice shaky. "They could be in there. We shouldn't." Then everything changed. A loud crash echoed from behind us, followed by shouting voices. They were close, too close. "Move," I urged, pushing the door open. The gaping room beyond was even darker than the hallway, but we had no choice.
Instinctively, we ducked inside and pulled the door shut, pressing against it. I could feel the vibrations from the chaos outside reverberating through the door. My breath came in shallow gasps. "Do you think they saw us?" I whispered, trying to suppress the tremor in my voice. "I don't know," he replied, his eyes darting around the small room. It was cluttered with dusty old tools and pieces of equipment, but in the far corner, my gaze caught something glinting in the dark. "Wait," I said, moving closer to investigate. I crouched down and brushed away some debris. That's when I saw it. A small, weathered safe, half buried under some broken crates. "What? What is it?" he asked, but I could barely hear him over the pounding in my ears. "It's locked," I said, feeling a rush of frustration combined with a sense of urgency. If only we could open it. A sound jolted me upright. The door rattled, and I held my breath. We were trapped, and a sense of dread hit me like a stone. I had to know what was inside that safe. Just as I thought we might escape, light flooded in from the cracks in the doorway, and someone called out, "Search everywhere!" "No more hiding," I murmured. The moment of truth was coming. I could feel the panic rising in my throat as I crouched next to the safe. The voices outside were growing closer, their shouts mingling with my heartbeat. I had to know what secrets lay within, but time was running out. I glanced at the man beside me, fear mirrored in his eyes. "They're coming," he hissed, pressing his back against the door in a futile attempt to brace it. "We need to move." I choked down the surge of dread and turned back to the safe. There had to be a way to get it open. My fingers brushed over the surface, searching for some kind of lever or combination. The door rattled again, and I felt the cold sweat trickle down my spine. "Just give me a second," I whispered desperately. "Seconds are all we don't have," he shot back. I could feel the urgency in his tone, but the safe was calling to me. What if it contained something that could help us? I forced myself to focus, remembering how old safes often had flaws or hidden releases. I ran my fingertips over the edges until I found a small, nearly imperceptible gap at the back. With one final push, I wedged my fingers in and pulled. To my shock, the safe creaked open, a plume of dust swirling into the air. Inside, there were papers, jumbled notes, and what appeared to be photographs. My heart raced. As I fumbled through them, a chill swept over me when I saw the faces in the pictures. They were familiar, people I recognized, friends lost long ago. "What is it?" the man whispered again, his voice tight with anxiety. "If this is what I think it is," I muttered, my mind racing. "These are people connected to the gas station, all missing." A loud thud made me jump. They were right outside now, urgency in their movements. "They're near. We can't stay here." With a sinking feeling, I hurriedly grabbed a handful of the papers and shoved them into my pocket. As I did, I heard the door cracking open. The figures were forcing their way in. I couldn't think of a better choice. "Come on," I yelled, darting toward the back exit I hoped was our way out. "It could lead to nowhere," he protested, but I reached for the door handle, desperate. "Anywhere but here."
As I flung the door open, we stumbled into what looked like a small utility area. Metal shelves lined with scattered tools loomed above us, but the dim light gave us just enough visibility. There were two other doors, one leading down a dark staircase, another to the outside. "Outside, go!" I shouted, racing toward the exit as the sound of footsteps echoed behind me. With every nerve in my body buzzing, I shoved the door open. The cool air hit me like a wave, and I stumbled into the open space, glancing around for any sign of safety. The parking lot was deserted, forsaken under the pale moonlight. I scanned the area quickly, heart racing. "What now?" I panted, turning back to see the man right behind me. "Over there," he pointed, to the place where shadows clustered tightly around an old car. "We can't leave tracks. Stay low." We darted toward it, feeling the prickle of fear as we heard voices breaking through the darkness. I squeezed down by the car, crouching almost completely to the ground. "Did you check the back?" one voice called, echoing in the night. "We need to split up. The last thing we want is for them to get away," another answered. Panic flooded my veins. The adrenaline masked my fear as I tried to steady my breath. I couldn't let them find us. I searched for something in the car to shield us. I wasn't ready to be caught, not now. Then it struck me. The papers from the safe. "We need to show this to someone. Make them listen," I whispered urgently to him. "Are you crazy? Whoever can help us is probably at the diner we left, and even that's a long shot." "I don't care. I won't let this continue," I retorted fiercely. "Then what do you propose we do?" he asked, as footsteps headed closer, the figure searching. "Maybe we can get back into the building, go up to the loft." "But they'll be waiting for us. We have no idea how many there are," he warned, eyes glancing towards the dark interior. "It's our only option. We have to take the risk," I said, feeling the weight of the decision pressed against me. We could hear footsteps closing in. I gripped the few notes tightly. "Were our salvation or our downfall. Trust me," I whispered, feeling the resolve build within me. He nodded, reluctantly, as we knew what was coming. Together, we dropped low as the figures wandered closer. I could see just beyond the hood of the car now, shadows creeping in, searching methodically. "On three," I whispered. "1, 2, now!" With a surge of adrenaline, we bolted toward the entrance of the station. I felt the cold air and the looming threat behind us, but as luck would have it, the door flung open to reveal the horrifying sight of the unloading figures right inside. "Get back!" a sharp voice called. We halted in our tracks, realizing we had little choice now. My breath quickened as I looked to the man. There's no turning back. He reached for the notes. Together, armed with what we knew, we stepped forward. "Stop!" I shouted, bold and defiant. "We're not going to be your game anymore." The faces in the doorway froze, the air thick with tension crackling through the silence. I didn't know if we'd make it out alive, but I could feel the resolve in my veins. It was a moment of decision, a chance for a different path, even if I wasn't entirely sure where it would lead. Would they take me to safety, or was this where our fight truly began? But I was done hiding. Whether supernatural or natural, the threat was real, and I would find a way to break the cycle.